it was a heartfelt night and very humbling experience for sure. I've never had anything like that before. It's, it always PBA first and individuals somewhere down the line.
Welcome to episode 315 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland, and this is a very special edition of the show that we are dropping this Tuesday, as over the weekend, Prairie Baseball Academy held its annual banquet and celebration of baseball. It was also a night to honor a Southern Alberta baseball legend. Todd Hubka has been with the program going on 29 years and is now entering his 15th season as head coach. He helped guide them to 7 straight CCBC championships and has a career .580 winning percentage. For all that, he was this year's lone inductee into the PBA Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen circumstances, Ian and I weren't able to make it, but I was able to catch up with Hubs and a few others over the phone over the last couple of days. We'll hear from the man of the hour in just a bit. But first, Les McTavish introduced Hubs to the stage Saturday night. McTavish was a player with PBA back in 1996, played under Hubka with the original LA Bulls in 1999, and has been a coaching colleague and friend for years. Here's my chat with Vauxhall Academy of Baseball head coach Les McTavish. Les, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited to talk about a legend in Todd Hubka.
I'm glad that you mentioned the word legend, and I was going to ask about that right off the bat. When you first heard that he was being inducted into the PBA Hall of Fame, what went through your mind?
Well, it's certainly well-deserved. It's an honor for Todd, but, he's impacted so many lives in Southern Alberta, in the baseball community, right from Little League to field work to the Prairie Baseball Academy, the Lethbridge Bulls to the Junior Academy. He's had his fingerprints on so many things. So I was so excited for Todd, and I know he was honored and he was so well deserved.
Take us back to the early years when you first met him and started playing for him. What was it like in those early days?
Well, the first time I met him, he was playing and I was playing, so we were playing in the SMDL. So I first met him when he was a player, and he was a really good player. He was hard-nosed. He was a gamer. He competed. He could really hit. So that was my first experience. And then I was fortunate enough to be coached by Todd with the Lethbridge Bulls. So in 99 and 2000, the first years of the Bulls, I was lucky enough to be coached by him. And you just, Hub's a straight shooter. He's loyal. He's dedicated. He's extremely competitive, but he's fair. And, I remember him as a coach. You always knew he believed in you, and it didn't matter. And he had your back, and he was going to defend you, and he wanted you to do great. And it's easy to say as coaches, we want players to do great, but you felt it when you played for Hub. You felt like he had your back. He was going to do anything in his power to make sure that you were successful that day on the mound. And a lot of great memories, and I'll cherish his friendship forever.
Speaking of the coaching side of things, how did he impact your transition into the coaching realm? Like, what kinds of things did he rub off on you when it comes to like philosophies and how you handle guys, stuff like that?
Well, when I first started coaching full-time with the Prairie Baseball Academy in 2001, it was me, him, and Kubi. Mm-hmm. And I just remember Todd as a coach. He ran a great offense. He could really teach hitting. He had an uncanny way of making players be tough and hard-nosed, and it rubbed off on me early in my coaching career that you can be tough, but you need to be fair, and you need to be loyal, and you need players to know that you believe in them. And that's how Hub operated. Hub, I knew him as an assistant coach when I coached with him, as a head coach when I played for him, but he just had so many impacts with players. And, he won't sugarcoat it to you either, right? He's going to tell you the truth, and he's going to tell you the straight up. And I always respected that about him. He wouldn't tell you what you want to hear. He would tell you what you need to hear. And I think players appreciate that. And I always appreciated it both as a player playing for him, and then as a colleague and a coach alongside of him.
Looking back on it, any favorite moments or memories of Hubs you'd like to share? Especially the stories that people might not necessarily know about him, maybe away from the ballpark or maybe in the ballpark that maybe stick out to you.
Well, Hub and I, our relationship's pretty deep. We talk on the phone every day, and this morning at 7:30 in the morning, I called Todd on my way to Vauxhall to just chat baseball and to chat about things. And the so many people feel intimidated, I think, by Todd. He's a big guy, he's kind of rough, gruff personality, but he's a huge teddy bear at heart. And I think people that get to know Todd realize and appreciate how he's sensitive. And sensitive in a good way. Like, he really cares about people, and he's a ton of fun. Like, we'll play early fall games with PBA and Vauxhall, and all the kids are nervous and anxious, and like in the middle of a ball game, all of a sudden there'll be a ball that'll rifle across between innings into our dugout and hit me in the leg. And there's Hub over there with a smirk on his face, pretending it wasn't him. And then I'll throw one back into their dugout, and then and things like that I think just break the ice with kids, and everybody kind of relaxes and go, okay, he's not the scariest person in the world either, right? So, there's lots of great stories about Hub, and I told the story, at the banquet the other night, that it happened to be a pitching, even though Todd was a hitter and a great hitter. When I first played against him, first ever game I played against him, he came in out of the bullpen for the OM Pronghorns, and he was mainly a hitter. He wasn't a pitcher, but he comes in, he wasn't throwing very hard, and we get a hit or a walk and get a guy on first, and he had the best pickoff move he ever saw. He picked the guy off first, next guy got on, picked him off first, 2 in a row. Like, so that's how, and then he hit 3 doubles in the game. And that's the type of player Hub was. He just, he was competitive. He did anything he could do to win. And, and that's why I admire him, as a coach.
Take us back to that banquet for a minute here, and what was it like standing on the stage, watching, or even sitting in the crowd and listening to some of the stories and hearing everyone kind of clamor about the legend known as Hubs?
Yeah, it was awesome. Rocky Musgrave started it off. Rocky was Todd's mentor and the Fort McLeod Royals coach, and then went on to have a great college coaching career. And Rocky was telling stories about Todd when he was 14, 15 years old, and he was the same guy when he was 21. And then Brandon Magorowski, who played for Hub at PBA and then coached with Hub at PBA, like when Hub first became the head coach. And, the stories and how we all kind of resonated the same thing, just how he believes in players, how he's competitive, to how he always seems to bring out the best in players. And, a player that's played for the Prairie Baseball Academy for Hub and Scotia and Bergie, they're going to be tough. They're going to be competitive. They're going to give you everything they have. And, they don't need the glitz and the glamour all the time. And that's something that is unique in today's day and age. They don't need all the technology and all the other stuff, because, any player that's played for Hub knows how to compete and knows how to win.
Absolutely. You've seen PBA and the program since basically the very beginning. Looking back at where it was to where it is today, what do you think he should be most proud of when he looks at what he's helped build?
Well, I'll tell you what, Hub, I never got coached by Hub. I got to play 1 year at PBA, and then Hub came in the next year. But Hub was an assistant coach with Kubi, and, he's a legend. Kubi's a legend. And he had to, they did awesome. Prairie Baseball Academy is exceptional. We couldn't ask for a better person to start PBA than Blair Kubasek. But then it's not easy to follow a legend, right? Hub had to take over as the head coach following, a legend in Blair Kubasek. And not only did he follow him, I think he, started to add his own ideas and continue to build the program and take it to the next level. And bring in new ideas. He's got great assistant coaches, right from the varsity team with Josh and Scosh, and then their JV program with Tate and Cabby. They got really good coaches. They have a lot of really good, talented people. And, like I look back on when Todd took over as the head coach. That's a tough job, and that was the time when all the academies were taken off at the high school level, which probably pinched his recruiting a bit. And they continued to adapt and continue to stay ahead of the curve and find new ways to continue to attract players. And that's what makes PBA special.
You mentioned kind of the continuity plan almost to a certain extent, right? Because you've got guys. You mentioned Brandon and how he went and coached for a little bit after playing, and then he's gone down south doing his own thing. There's been a few of those. Talk about how he's always been able to bring out the best, not only players but also bring up some young up and coming coaches that are now doing their own thing.
100%. That Hub understands and does a great job of identifying people that are going to be successful, especially in the coaching world. I think of all the assistant coaches that they've had at PBA over the years. Every one of them did great things. And, when Todd, Joel Blake's been an assistant coach for the Vauxhall Academy for 13 years. I would have never, I knew Joel indirectly, kind of, but it was Hub that called me and said, I think you should hire Petey. He called him Petey after Pete Rose. Mm-hmm. And so we looked at it. I met with Joel, and 13 years later, he's did a tremendous job with us. And there's so many stories like that of guys that have been really successful that they've had guys in professional ranks, in the coaching world, in the strength and conditioning, college ranks, WCBL, the Vauxhall Academy, like all sorts of different, and a lot of it goes back to Hub. And I think he believes and he sees certain things in people that knows that these are the type of human beings that will be successful coaches. And a lot of times where they first start is with Prairie Baseball Academy.
Absolutely. Final question for you here, Les. When I say the name Todd Hubka, what comes to mind to you first?
Lethbridge Baseball. I started my speech on in my introduction of him on the weekend, and his fingerprints is so embedded in Lethbridge baseball, from Little League to the Junior Academy to the Lethbridge Bulls to the Prairie Baseball Academy to the Vauxhall Academy. There's not a lot of people out there that, we're a high school academy an hour away from Lethbridge, and Hub supports us like we're working together, and I really appreciate that. Not a lot of people would, because us starting probably hurt his recruiting a little bit. But Hub, I never felt that from Hub. I always felt like he supported our program. And so the best words I'd say is Todd Hubka is Lethbridge Baseball.
Well, and you've done a great job of sharing some of the stories as to why he is baseball in Lethbridge. Les, always appreciate the time. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit of what you were able to share on Saturday.
My pleasure, and stay warm out there when you wake up to minus 35. Baseball will be here soon enough.
Next up is longtime PBA assistant coach Ryan MacDonald. He came to the program as a player back in 2004 and has now been there as a coach for 15, including 13 with the varsity squad. That's a long time to be connected with Hubka, so he has a few stories to share. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks for having me.
When you first heard that Hubs was being inducted into the PBA Hall of Fame, what went through your mind?
It's crazy. This is my 16th year with the program, and I was thinking back, and I've actually been there a little bit longer than Coach Kubasek, who I think overtook him for years there. But there's not a more deserving person. When I think that had a bigger impact just on me, I came through the program, played for him, and he's one of those guys that just you want to run through a wall for when you play, and he's kind of the same when you're coaching with him too. You know what I mean? So there's not a guy more fitting for to be in the Hall of Fame.
I was going to ask about those early years, and especially as a player, was that a bit of a challenge to kind of get over? You're in a new province and you're coming to a new program, and here's this guy who's a little gruff around the edges at the time, anyways, an assistant coach.
Yeah, I mean, being from a small town in Nova Scotia, and coming out to PBA, and when you're 18 years old and you're one of the better players in a small province in Nova Scotia, and you come here and you're not the better player, they let you know back then where you fit pretty quick. And that was the harsh reality of it, was they're brutally honest, and that's what a lot of 18-year-olds need. You know what I mean? And it's tough now with the reactions of kids and the way I always say the way the world is nowadays to have that reality, but that's kind of the way we keep it, and it's just brutally honest, and that's the way it is, and that's what helps kids get better.
You went on to have a pretty stellar collegiate career, and then you went into coaching as well. How much of that attitude and that upfront kind of personality actually helped you in your development as a player and as a coach down the road?
Yeah, well, coming up, that's the way my dad was, and being away from my family for the first time and having someone very similar to the way my dad was, and even my mom, brutally honest, it's just what I needed to there was never sugarcoating anything with those guys, and that's the way I'm the exact same way nowadays too, as what Coach Kubasek and Coach Hubka, what they taught me. That's the way I coach, and that's what they need. And like I said, the harsh reality of it is a lot of these kids being away from home, they need that father figure and someone to be honest with them, because we all think we have it figured out at 18 years of age, and I'm sure you can attest to that too.
I still don't pretend like I know anything, so it's been Take us through that coming back and becoming a coach, and now it's been 15 with him. How much have you learned under Hubs as a coach, and how you've learned about whether it's philosophies or whether it's about how you handle guys? What's been your biggest takeaway from a coach's perspective?
Just the biggest thing is, I'd say, just the work ethic part of it, right? The field and the organization of just the structure around everything would be the biggest things that I've taken away. When you first start coaching, you think coaching is easy, right? and then now, like I said, I've been doing it 16 years with them, 14 with Hub, and yeah, just even though you've been done playing for that amount of time, you never feel like you've really left the game. I think that's the good thing about it. When you're playing, you never know when your last game is, and you still feel, being coaching for 16 years, you still feel like you've never really finished playing the game, because you're constantly doing stuff with the players. Whether you probably see some of the videos, I like to hit with the guys and jump in there and and I lift quite a bit. So I try to stay young with them. I think that is a good thing for Hub too. I think just being around the 18 to 20-year-olds has helped keep our little jump in our step and keep us young. And like I said, it feels like we've never really left the game.
For sure. 3 years as a player with Hubs, another 15, 16 as a coach. You've seen a lot of road trips together. You've seen a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Yeah. What's been some of your favorite memories or moments and you'd love to share with people that maybe they don't even know about?
The biggest thing with our program would be, that 7-year stretch where we won 7 in a row. But, the best things is just, coming to a new town or a new city and just sitting down and having a beer and, catching up on old stories. And, we'll run into, an alumni will reach out and, we'll sit down and we'll tell stories about an alumni or old stories about Cubes. Those are the things that, a lot of people don't really know is, just kind of catching up and relaxing. And, when you go to Vegas, you get to see some cool things, together and travel around, lots of walking and stuff like that. I'd say that the away from the baseball part is the funnest part, and just really, connecting and getting to know each other every single year is a big thing for us.
How much of a teddy bear is Todd Hubka?
Oh, he lets on. He's got a tough persona, but he's a big cuddly. Yeah, he's one of those guys, like, we always say we have an open door policy in our program, and a lot of the kids are intimidated to obviously come in and talk to us. But he really is, one of the biggest kind-hearted men you'll ever meet, and he's always tough on the exterior, but when he needs, a kick in the butt, you're going to get a kick in the butt, but also he's one of those guys that'll jump up and give you a hug too when you need it. So he's definitely one of those guys.
It's funny you mentioned the alumni piece as well. And in talking with Hubs numerous times over the years, he, as you mentioned, he's always willing and able to share stories, and that seems to be a real point of pride for him. Is like, it doesn't matter how far, PBA might be the last stop on the baseball journey, but he just seems so proud about where they've ended up. Even coaches, whether it be yourself or others who've gone along, talk about being able to watch him deliver on that side of things and watch him take that much pride in what he does from a forming the human being perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's, we always say when players come in, recruits, they always ask like how many professional successes you've had where guys have went on to professional baseball. And the first thing he always says, I'm more proud of, guys that have moved on to be lawyers or doctors or, police officers and stuff like that. The professional ones are the easy ones that, you didn't really have too much to really do with those guys. They kind of earned it themselves. But, those guys that went on to, get a 4.0 to get into physiotherapy school or something like that, that's a little bit tougher, you know what I mean, too. So the good thing is every single year we kind of run that alumni meal program where we get to kind of look through, guys' profile pictures and see how their families are doing after their donations and kind of put them out there. So, I kind of take them all in when we get those e-transfers and, I'll say a name and have a, bust out a story of what kind of player they were and stuff like that. And it's just funny, sitting beside him each day when I'm pumping those out, pictures of their family, and he slides over beside me and we're sitting there giggling. And then, some of the pictures from the early 2000s or late 90s of guys with the program, he's definitely, like I said, definitely more proud of the alumni that have just out in the community constantly doing things and the community aspect of those alumni than anything else in our program.
Mm-hmm. I know he's really involved in that banquet. And so was it difficult keeping anything from him, knowing that he was going to be the star attraction for the night?
Yeah, they had planned, they were trying to actually bring Coach Kubasek out again, but he couldn't make it. And then they actually had Brandon Magarowski came up from Louisiana to speak. And, one of Hub's longtime friends, played for Hub. And he snuck in without him knowing to kind of do a scholarship presentation. And Hub was shocked. And then one of Coach Hub's longtime best friends growing up playing baseball, they said since they were 10 years old. Scott Rhodes, former coach of the Bulls as well. I think he coached for 6 years. Mm-hmm. Coached me with the Bulls. Same thing. He came up from New Mexico. He actually ended up flying for about 24 hours. He was supposed to have a direct flight from Dallas and ended up having 3 layovers in Salt Lake and a bunch of other places he ended up going. But yeah, he snuck in too. And as soon as Coach Hub saw them, he was, there was tears flowing. That was the cool thing, is just kind of the shock that he had no idea. And that's the reaction the alumni wanted. And yeah, the shocked aspect, it was cool just to see him overcome with joy to see those 2 of his best friends come up here. So yeah,
for sure. Speaking of the reaction in that, give us your reaction when you kind of looked around the room with the standing O and all of the things happening as Todd's introduced to the stage. It had to have been something where you get all the feels, all the goosies are happening.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to take it all in. Like I said, I there's not another man more earned in to be in the Hall of Fame, more deserving, and just seeing all the alumni and all community coaches and community parents from Little League all the way up, just having so much support. Les McTavish said it in his speech. Todd, you are Lethbridge baseball. When you think of Lethbridge baseball, Todd has this thumbprint in basically every organization in some form or aspect along the way. So, the first thing one of the alumni said and Coach Hub said is, yeah, kind of take it all in because you'll be up here in another 20 or 30 years type of thing. And that was kind of a shock to me, you know what I mean? Just even to think about that, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, there was some jokes and some tears, and it was definitely a great evening.
Fantastic stuff. Well, Coach, one final question before we let you go. When I say the name Todd Hubka, what comes to mind first for you?
comes kind-hearted, rugged, tough around the edges, honest, brutally honest, competitive, and the guy that would run through the wall for you. That's kind of everything. Not one word, but there's a few there. Like I said, well deserved of the Hall of Fame. If you've got to know him and had a conversation with him, whether it's on the baseball field or off, he's one of those guys that's you just want to buy into the conversation and do anything for type of guy. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, a great tribute to a fantastic man. Coach, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for joining us here on the show and sharing some of your memories.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Joe.
And lastly, the distinguished guest. Todd Hubka played his youth baseball in Clarisole, moved up to the Fort Macleod Royals program in American Legion, suited up for North Idaho College in the Oyen Pronghorns, before coming to PBA in 1996 as an assistant coach under Blair Kubasek. He took over as head coach in 2011 while also taking on that role at various times with the Lethbridge Bulls. He's become Mr. Baseball in Lethbridge from Little League all the way up. Here's our conversation with the newest member of the Prairie Baseball Academy Hall of Fame, Todd Hubka. Todd, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Joe. Excited to be here.
Let's start here. Todd Hubka, 2025 Prairie Baseball Academy Hall of Fame inductee. Has that sunk in quite yet?
Do you know what? Before Saturday night, no, it hadn't. And feeling really stressed about it, before the night and everything, because I wanted it. Yes, I'm going into the Hall of Fame, but I'm also, want the banquet to do really well and showcase PBA for all it is. And so, yep, the nerves were there on Saturday night, but now that it's all over with, it's a deep breath, and the body finally gets to relax a little bit. And you know what, enjoying there was some videos that the alumni wanted to share that night, and of course it was just it got to the point the night was getting a little long, so the alumni board, they sent me all the messages from the alumni. So yesterday I sat in my office and spent a half hour listening to all the comments from the alumni, and tell you what, I'm glad I was by myself. There was a few tears running down my face. So
that's awesome. Take us back to Saturday night for a minute. What was it like looking out into that crowd? There's probably a standing ovation there, and knowing that it's all for you. I know you hate talking about yourself, but at the same time, it was a night to celebrate you.
Yeah, you know what? I don't like talking about stuff like this. It's about the program and not one individual. And yes, I enjoy inducting other people into our Hall of Fame for everything they've done for Prairie Baseball Academy and baseball. And, it's just when it's you, it's a little uncomfortable. But I tell you what, the alumni did a great job on, the organization of everything and the comments made by everybody. And it was a heartfelt night and very humbling experience for sure. I've never had anything like that before. It's, it always PBA first and individuals somewhere down the line. So I appreciate everything they did and all the nice comments. And it was an awesome night.
Were you in the dark about the program for the most part? I know you're so heavily involved in organizing the night. Did you know what was coming, or were there a few surprises along the way?
Yeah, there were some surprises. My old Legion coach, and he coached me actually in junior college too, Rocky Musgraves. They reached out to him, and he wasn't there, but did a video presentation, and that got the waterworks going a little bit. And he's probably why I love baseball as much as I do, is because of that man. And so yeah, that was a surprise. I wasn't expecting that. And then they flew in an alumni, Brandon Magarowski, who lives down in Shreveport, Louisiana. And again, same thing. It was listen to his stories and everything was it was, like I said, very humbling. And Scott Rhodes, they brought in Scotty, and I know Scott. Mm-hmm. So again, I didn't know any of these guys were coming, and it was what a night. It was they did an awesome job, and I don't know how the hell they kept it from me, but they did. So
They knew it would be
was,
special for you, so that's awesome.
yeah.
I mean, you've been there from the beginning. So what's it been like to see the program transform into what it is today?
You know what? I wasn't here the first year, so I haven't been here from the beginning, but very, very close. So 29 years. So, it's funny, like the first year there wasn't a lot of wins. We didn't have a facility, and, in the first couple of years of the program, we used Spitz Stadium. We used, up in the industrial section here in Lethbridge, just, basically garage space to put up a weight room and a hitting net and try to train in there and run camps in there. So, to where it has become is, we have a beautiful facility here in Lloyd Nolan Yard and the indoor and the program just keeps growing. As our alumni keep growing, so does the program, and the support that we get from our alumni is unbelievable. And we have some things in the works down here that we're gonna hopefully continue building PBA bigger and better, and with the support of our alumni and the businesses in the community, I think it's all gonna happen. So excited to where it's going, and been blessed to be here for 29 years and doing something that I love. Is not a lot of people can say that they get to go to work every day, and it's not work, it's something you love. So appreciate all that.
Mm-hmm. When you took over as head coach about 15 years ago, did you ever think at that time that you'd have the level of success that you've had to this point?
You know what? I don't. Again, I good question, Joe. Like, that's something that, what is success? Is winning success? Is moving players on success? Is it, what you build as a person success? And, the wins are, I hope I'm capable that we can win baseball games, but I think the success has come, from especially taking over as head coach. And Coach Kubasek did a great job too. But when it falls on your shoulders to make sure that these kids come from across Canada, and moms and dads that that you have their best interest in their sons when they come here, is a lot of responsibility. And I think we as an organization and a coaching staff have done a really good job on developing, yes, baseball players, but even more developing great humans. And that shows in, I'm talking about the alumni a lot, but that shows in our alumni, on following them on social media, and, the careers that they've made for themselves, and the families that they've, that they're making and have made, or, those are that's success to me. The wins are wins and the losses are losses, but the success of the program is, what we're, in my opinion, how we've helped these young men become men. And it's again, very appreciative for everything that they've done.
Mm-hmm. You answered that one exactly how I thought you would, given that I know that a win's a win on the field, but at the end of the day, it's all about who's got your back home and that kind of stuff, because I know fam is really important to you as well. Looking back on all your time here at PBA to this point, do you have a favorite memory or moment that kind of sticks out to you where you kind of had to go, man, this is something else?
There's a lot of them. Like, just all the the alumni, the successes of the alumni are what get me excited. And whether you're following them in their baseball career still, or their professional lives, like those are the things I remember, and where they're going, and how successful they've been, or those are the things that even when I'm done coaching here, I think those are the things I'll remember the most. I think, one of the biggest, if I had to pick, one thing, I think it was the year, and a little bit of sadness to the year the boys were, that unfortunate accident that happened. Mm-hmm. We ended up winning the World Series that year. And, that was a hard year. Like that, respect to the players, what we went through that year, and to end up winning the last game of the year. And, they're all special, but that one, it's always in my back of my mind, is that year and that win. So.
Speaking of, I know that that's going to be coming up before too long, the annual game, that kind of thing. How important has it been for you to continue to remember everybody involved? It's not just the two players, but whether it's Shayna or whether it's Tabitha, like there's that whole community that's been impacted, not just here, but obviously across the country. Talk about being able to honor their memories year after year after year after as you mentioned, such a difficult time and a difficult season.
Yeah, as the years go by here, it's there's a few of us that were around when that all happened, and and I know it means a lot more to us when we do play that game and remember everyone involved, and I do think it's important that we do continue remembering them. And it doesn't matter that what's it been, 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's 14. And, when you show up to the ballpark that day, there's still a tear in your eye, and you remember, that crazy day on December 15th, a long time ago. So, and, it just brings back a lot of emotion and memories, but, I'm glad we're still, showing the love to everyone involved, and hopefully it continues moving forward. It's crazy when you go to the game now, like the players didn't know that Mitch and Tanner, but you make sure that you tell them what kind of people they were, and that's it. Crazy. Yeah, it's been 15 years. Wow.
Yeah, no kidding. I know that it kind of segues into a question I usually ask the athletes is, what's been the biggest challenge or hurdle you've had to overcome aside from, those moments of, sheer tragedy like that. What's been maybe some of the biggest challenges you face as a coach over the years?
You know what? I think recruiting is always tough. You want to recruit the best players and love all the academies that start up, but that's lots of times those academies are bypassing PBA, and understand why. Like it's they're trying to place their players in the best programs they can too, but that one's been tough. Like, and as we keep moving forward, there's more and more, like, baseball's growing in this country tremendously, and there's academies out in the Maritimes now, and there's so many year-round programs now, and I think that one's one of the biggest hurdles. But we just have to change our avenue a little bit, and change our way of how we're going after players. But for sure, we have a coaching staff here that's really dedicated to getting the best athletes here, and we're excited what we have coming in next year, and we're excited about this year's team too, of course. But I think that's one of the biggest hurdles. The weather, Joe, is always a hurdle.
You don't say.
We were outside last week practicing, which is crazy. 3 of the days we were on our infield. It was awesome. We weren't battling wind or cold, and we had a couple really good practices outside, and now it's minus 20, and I'm looking out the window here, and there's everything is white, and I'm trying to figure out already how to get the snow off the darn thing. So
it's a little early and a little cold for that, I think, Todd.
We need to get it off. So
Fair enough. Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned the coaching staff, because I was just chatting with Les McTavish about this, and one of the things you mentioned, Brandon, as an example, but there have been guys you've had not just as players, but they were former players. You turned them into coaches, and now they're doing other things, right? They're doing coaching, or they're running their own businesses, that kind of stuff. Talk about being able to develop leaders as well. Is that something that you've been mindful of as you've been going about things? Is like you identify those guys who are capable of being coaches and go, okay, I can take them down that path?
Yeah, you know what? Like I didn't really like I said, you know, I didn't know what I was going to talk about on Saturday night. And so, you know, one of it, I wanted to make sure that, you know, I wanted to thank all the coaches that have been here. And I started making a list, and it was like, you know, there's been over 20 coaches that have coached here. And, you know, and yeah, Brandon Maggs, he, you know, the first year that I took over, you know, he jumped in and he was my head assistant for 1 year. And, you know, how successful that man's been down in Louisiana on, you know, creating his own business down there. And, you know, there's so many other ones too, whether, you know, some of them stayed involved in baseball, you know, at the higher levels, the academy levels. And, you know, some of them, you know, like Omar Kadir, you know, he was your coach too. And, you know, now he's a school teacher here in Lethbridge, and, you know, he's coaching his son in Little League, you know, who's 11 years old now and going through the junior academy. So it's just, there's been so many of them that, you know, and for the most part, not for the most part, all of them have been successful, you know, after leaving PBA and moving on to other academies or, you know, just professional, you know, wherever their lives have taken them. So
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about one aspect of life, and that is the home team. How integral has your family been in making all of your PBA dreams come true?
You know what? Without them, they're family, right? Like, they're the ones that you go home to every night, and you know, they have to put up with all your coaching nonsense. With you know, you're gone so much of, you know, from September until May. You know, you're missing Thanksgivings, you're missing Easters, you're missing birthdays, you're missing Sunday dinners, and you know, I'm glad I think my family understood how important it was, you know, coaching, and they understood that you know, yes, I was away a lot, but I love the hell out of them, and I thank them, you know, to this day. I still thank them for letting me do what I love, and you know, they get to put up, you know, they don't get to, you know, the players sometimes don't get to see how hard it is when you're on a 4-game losing streak or something like that. And, you know, sometimes you do take those things home, and I try not to, but sometimes it's tough. And, you know, they've seen Dad really happy, and they've seen Dad down too. So, but love my family and thank them, you know, from the bottom of my heart, what they've allowed me to be able to do. So, yeah.
A tip of the cap to the fam for sure. Final question for you, Todd. What does PBA mean to you?
That's a huge question. You know what? I said earlier, it's, you know, when I first started doing this, it was, I remember, you know, I was playing for the Oi and Pronghorns that summer, and Doug Jones had a big part to do with the Prairie Baseball Academy at the beginning. And, you know, you know, I went up to Doug and said, you know, what about this PBA? Like, are they looking for coaches? And he said, well, I think they are. And so he got me in touch with Coach Kubasek. And remember, you know, at the end of the Pronghorn season, I went to Lethbridge and went to Coach's house, and we sat and talked for probably an hour and a half. And you know, and he hired me, you know, kind of on the spot, and said, we'd love to have you. And, you know, that was 29 years ago, and it's been crazy. It's that 29 years have gone by. Like, that's I guess I love it, because it sure in the hell doesn't seem like 29 years. It seems like yesterday that, you know, we were in those indoors in North Lethbridge, and, you know, didn't have a field. And, you know, to where PBA is now, and how successful it's been. Yeah, what it means to me, Joe, it means everything to me. This is the life that I chose, and I'm glad I chose it. I've enjoyed, you know, every minute of it, even the bad times, or, you know, to get over those, to, you know, the good times outweigh them so much that, what an honor it's been to be here for 29 years. It's been awesome.
Well, it's been an honor and a privilege getting to chat a little bit about the well-deserved recognition there, Todd. Congratulations, PBA Hall of Fame inductee for 2025. Todd, always appreciate getting a chance to sit down and chat with you. Thanks so much, and again, congratulations.
Thank you, Joe. And like always, appreciate what you guys are doing up there. It's awesome to read your stories, basically daily. And you guys are doing an awesome job. Appreciate everything you do.
Thanks again to Les McTavish, Ryan MacDonald, and Todd Hubka for joining us for this very special edition of the show. And again, congratulations to Hubs on the well-deserved honor. And thanks to all of you for downloading and listening. We will have another episode of the show coming up this Friday, as the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame will be introducing its class of 2025 on Thursday. So we wanted to make sure we get that into the news. A tip of the cap to our Platinum supporters, Under the Lights Sports and Entertainment, the Okotoks Dogs, and Western Canadian Baseball League for all they do for us and for baseball in Alberta. To learn more about sponsorships and about our amazing teammates, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories.